Welcome to The AMP, your favorite podcast for elevating voices and empowering change. I'm your host, Tianna Montgomery, the Communications Associate here at National Skills Coalition. And if you're wondering what that means, well, I'm just here to roll out the red carpet and make us look good. This podcast is intended to provide a space where the voices of those who are and want to be involved in skills training advocacy can be elevated and amplified. What skills training, you say? Well, I'm glad you asked. This is the first part of a 3-part series that's going to help you understand what skills training is and what NSC is doing to advocate for it, the state, federal, and sometimes even the local level. And don't worry, you'll hear from experts in the field, not just my beautiful voice over your speakers or headphones. Today we'll be talking about skills training alongside our very special guests. But before we dive into today's conversation, let's talk about skills training for just a second. Now, I know skills training might not sound like the most thrilling topic. I know. You're probably thinking, oh great, another thing I should have been paying attention to in school. But hear me out. Skills training is basically the cheat code for getting a good quality job. Good quality job. It's like learning how to actually do something instead of just nodding along in meetings, hoping no one asks you a question. Think about it. You've got welders, electricians, coders, even the people who fix your car after you totally did not hit that curb. We won't talk about it, and I won't tell. We've all been there. They all went through some type of skills training, right? And it's not just good for workers, it's good for businesses and, frankly, the whole economy. The more people with the right skills equals the more jobs getting done right, equals everyone wins. So today we're unpacking why skills training matters and how it can be the game changer you didn't know you needed. With that being said, I'd like to welcome our very first guest, the snazzy, the fashionable, the brooch-wearing CEO, Robert Espinoza. Let's get into it. Hey, Robert, thanks for joining us here today on our first episode of The AMP, our new podcast from NSC. How are we doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Tianna. I'm excited to kick it off.
Excellent. So you started here at NSC about 2 years ago. You're in a new CEO role. What led you to join this organization specifically?
Yeah, I had heard about National Skills Coalition for years. I worked previously for an organization called PHI, which focused on improving jobs for home care workers and nursing assistants, and worked closely with businesses, with policymakers at the state and federal level. And National Skills Coalition shared our approach. We believed as an organization, as does NSC, that in order to improve our economy and improve industry and improve the well-being of workers, we needed to invest in critical areas like skills training, career pathways, and so much more. And so it's an organization that's very close to my heart because I've been working on issues of workforce equity and economic mobility really for years. And it's an honor to be a part of a movement that's making sure that working people have access to affordable skills training, to career pathways that lead to better jobs, and to supportive services like childcare and transportation, and that local businesses are able to compete in an evolving economy.
That's a great answer. I love that. I love when people care about people, but it's nice. That's a great answer. I love that. So you've given us a little synopsis on your background. So let's kick things off with the basics. I would consider you an expert in the field. Having some tenure under your belt. How would you define skills training to someone who has no idea what it is? I personally defined it as a cheat code to get ahead, to get on a great career path. But how would you define it?
It's a great question. It reminds me that so often we talk about issues in our country in ways that don't pay attention to whether or not people understand it. And skills training is something that many people benefit from, but it may be a term that doesn't quite resonate. Skills training is structured learning that helps people gain the knowledge and the skills needed for a specific job or industry. It prepares working people, typically for jobs beyond high school, but not requiring a 4-year degree, which are most jobs in this country. And it can take many forms. It can be career and technical education. It can be classroom instruction. It can be apprenticeships, work-based learning. It can be a program at a community college. And it's not a one-size-fits-all education model. It's really tailored to match a worker's needs and workforce needs, equipping them with the skills rooted in core competencies that employers are seeking. So it can be both about technical skills, let's say welding or IT coding or home healthcare, And it can be about foundational skills like problem solving and teamwork. And it's really critical right now because skills training is critical to industries like construction, like healthcare, utilities. These are in-demand industries that need workers who have had access to skills training programs. And yet too often the skills training programs, they're not properly resourced, or they're simply not designed in such a way that workers do obtain the skills needed for these jobs. Let me give an example. So for 10 years, I worked in the direct care sector, which is a sector that employs millions of home healthcare workers and nursing assistants who are supporting older adults and people with disabilities in a whole range of settings. They're working in private homes, they're working in nursing homes, they're working in assisted living, and together they are larger than any other job occupation in this country. In order to be successful as a home care worker or a nursing assistant, you need training, right? You need training on how do you support somebody with daily living, like bathing, dressing, eating. There's also a
Or
proper way to lift somebody. And if you don't lift them properly, that person
it
can
end
get
up hurting
injured.
them. Yeah.
Exactly. Or the worker can get injured, right? And so skills training is really critical. And yet, what we often found is that those programs were under-resourced all around the country. And for those that did have resources, the training programs themselves often did not have the most modern methods, nor did they really equip workers with the right skills or the right knowledge bases or the confidence really to succeed. And so that's a great example of what skills training can do to fill a need. And when it's done well, it gives workers the confidence to succeed in their roles, and it gives our economy the workforce it needs to thrive.
Yes. So would you say it's like it could be a supplement or maybe even an alternative to a 4-year degree for someone who maybe can't afford to go to college or doesn't want to go to college, might just need some certifications or, like you said, some training to make sure they're not getting injured on the jobs, make sure they have the right skills?
That's right, Tiana. It can be both a standalone career pathway or it can be a supplement to a 4-year degree that you had. I think one thing to remember is that jobs that require skills training, they're the backbone of our US economy. These jobs include highly skilled, in-demand jobs in healthcare, in medical technology, IT. They include trades like plumbing and electricity and manufacturing. Research shows that 52% of jobs in this country require skills training beyond high school, but they don't require a 4-year degree. So many workers often earn credentials through skills training and they later pursue a degree. Others simply use skills training to simply pursue a career that doesn't need a full 4-year program. And I think it's important to recognize that today's economy values both types of education. It's about what best serves the individual's career goals and the labor market needs, and not stigmatizing working people and students who pursue one pathway over another.
Yeah, I would say that makes a lot of sense to me. When I was in high school, it wasn't too long ago because I'm not that old, but when I was in high school, um, the way community college was looked at, it almost had like a negative connotation with it. So a lot of people were going into college, getting their 4-year degrees, um, getting into crippling student debt when they could have just went up to the community college and had taken their certifications, gotten their skills training. For me personally, we had a program in high school. It was called Project Lead the Way. It was an engineering program. It's a 4-year program. You had to apply like in middle school, which I wouldn't say it's insane, but applying for an engineering program as an 8th grader, crazy. But it's a 4-year program. You go through all different types of engineering, civil engineering, digital, electrical, and thermodynamics for some odd reason. Um, but for me, I joined that program because I had an interest in Marvel movies and I loved Iron Man. So I really wanted to be Tony Stark when I grew up. So I took a lot of the engineering courses. But the problem was, after I got out of high school, I didn't know how to translate the skills that I had learned in the engineering program. It was like a where do I go from here type of thing. So I ended up just going into college, getting my degree. I mean, don't get me wrong, I work here with you fine people now. Um, but yeah, I would have liked to have, I guess, more visibility for these skills training programs, because that's another thing they're under-resourced, that they're also not visible to people who may not know exactly what skills training is or that these programs even exist.
Right. And thank you for sharing that story. It reminds me of so many family members and friends who didn't pursue college or pursued college and then realized that it wasn't quite the right choice. And so they decided to explore other options. And they're nurses, they are medical assistants, they are emergency responders. They play really important roles in our society, in our communities, and they deserve programs that are well designed and have enough funding. And I think that's the work that we do at National Skills Coalition, is to bring light to the types of programs and the kinds of policies that can better invest in this work.
Okay, so Robert, for a high school student like I was, what advice would you give me to gain more experience in the field I wanted to enter? And what would be my next step on kind of finding those skills training programs and figuring out how to get onto my career pathway?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, in terms of advice, I would share the advice that there are multiple jobs and careers that you can take that are satisfying, that pay well, that you can be proud of at the end of your career. To say, I was a certified nursing assistant, I was a welder or an electrician, I was a wind turbine technician or a cybersecurity analyst. These are honorable, important jobs that do not require a four-year degree, and they can be something that can give you the life that you want. Whether you pursue a four-year degree or not, that is your choice, right? They have different options and there are different ways to pursue it, but to simply take a step back and say, there isn't just one proper pathway for your career, for your future. The second piece of advice I would offer is to explore what is available in your community. If you're in high school, your high school might have a program or somebody on site who can help you understand what are the different options, whether it's going to a training program that's in the community, whether it's going to a community college, or let's say you do want to do a four-year degree and beyond. They should be offering you that advice. There are also opportunities in the community, and so you can search online for where those exist. So for example, let's say you want to become a certified nursing assistant because maybe later on you want to become a licensed practical nurse. Well, there are community colleges and there are technical programs all over the country that train workers on how to become a certified nursing assistant. And so you can find that program in your community, you can reach out to them, obtain the information about the price, about the availability, what it takes, etc., and then make an informed choice about what you want to do going forward. There are similar types of programs for electricians. You might begin through an apprenticeship or through an industry certification, or as a cybersecurity analyst I mentioned earlier, you might want to start with getting a degree in cybersecurity or computer science, which could be at a community college or at a university. And there are so many examples, I think, of different occupations and career paths that you can take. I think it's important to say that it's going to take a little bit of work to find them, but once you find it, you'll have a better sense of how much time and how much money it'll take so that you can make the best informed choice.
Nice. Thank you for that advice to 17-year-old me. So we've talked about the investments that go into skills training and childcare and transportation. Are there any other barriers that keep people away from accessing skills training?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I would note a few barriers that prevent people from accessing skills training. One is they simply don't know that skills training program is available in their communities, and they haven't necessarily internalized the message that pursuing a career that doesn't require a four-year degree is a viability, and that it can lead to a good job that will lead to a career pathway that will allow you and your family to live the way you want to live, right? And so being able to take that first step and understanding that that's a pathway that's perfectly viable, and then making sure you identify the right program, and then making sure that it's affordable, right? Those three go hand in hand. As a country, we need to invest in programs that market and share information with students all around the country, showing that this is a viable career path and there are skills training programs in their communities. The second is that we need to make sure that cost is not a barrier to training and education. And so we need to invest in financial aid and tuition assistance and a wide range of policy supports that simply make it more affordable for somebody who's pursuing one of these careers to be able to access. If it's too expensive, you're not going to pursue it. And what then becomes the option are typically low-wage jobs that are important for our economy, but that don't necessarily offer the kind of financial security that so many people need. The third is, I would say that in general, we need to invest in what we would call the broader workforce development system, right? So there are programs that ensure that skills training is accessible to students, learners, and workers across the board. We also need to invest in career pathways so that if a student decides that they want to elevate their career and they want to move from one program to another, from one occupation into another, that those programs provide that advancement. And we need to invest in supportive services so that people who are working parents or they are family caregivers, that they have the kind of support that they can still go to school or a training program and know that their child or their loved one, if it's a person with a disability or an older person, that they're being taken care of, that they have that adequate support. And we haven't invested enough in our country in universal family care, right? And making sure that families have access to both childcare and long-term care, and that they don't have access to other supportive services like training and coaching and so much more. I think the combination of those three elements are really critical for a student or a learner to be able to take on the career that they want.
It's interesting that you talk about childcare. It just makes me think of my sister. I have an older sister. She's 7 years older than me. She's 35, also kind of an unserious person. You would never guess that she's 35, but she's a single mom of 2 kids. And she's in the military, in the Air Force. But back during the pandemic, she had to take a class that required her, it took a lot of time out of her day. And, you know, a lot of the daycares were closed because of COVID. Luckily for her, I'm not going to say luckily, but I wasn't working at the time. I just gotten out of college and then the pandemic hit. So I was still kind of searching for a job. But I had to go and stay with her while she took this class. It was for a couple of months. She was living in Jersey at the time. I went up there and I watched my niece and nephew for her. But it just makes me think, like, a lot of people don't have that luxury of having someone close or nearby to help them out with the just regular daily things. So it's interesting you talk about childcare, and I agree we don't invest enough in those kind of things. I think it becomes an afterthought. Like, you get investment into these programs, but you don't think about all the other stuff that comes along with it and the domino effect that it has. So thank you
Absolutely.
for talking about childcare for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thank you for sharing that story, Tianna. I think it's a story that many working parents have, right? And it's typically a challenge that women are often charged with taking on, right? And so it creates a dynamic that we see in this country where so many working women reduce their hours, sometimes even quit their jobs in order to be a full-time parent. The same can be said about family caregivers. So a lot of us have parents who are aging, or we have an adult in our life who's living with a disability, and caregiving requires quite a bit of support. And many people, often women, will cut their work hours. They will step out of their careers, which then means they take a financial hit in their employability in their long term, and in order to be able to care for a parent or a person with a disability. And the reality is that this is a situation that affects millions of people, and it affects people mostly who do not have the resources to be able to hire a child care worker or get long-term care. But frankly, even if you have the financial resources, the other side of that challenge is that we don't have enough workers to fill those jobs, because child care jobs and direct care jobs, one, they don't pay enough, but also they don't offer the types of training or career pathways, job protections, work supports, etc., that make them good jobs. And so many direct care workers, as one example, often leave these jobs within the first 90 days for modestly better paying jobs in McDonald's or Macy's. And what this means is that the entire care safety net, whether it's the supportive services that you're relying on as a working person, or the jobs that fill those services, right? It's broken. And so we as a country need to figure out both sides of that equation in order to make sure that all of us have access to those supportive services.
Yeah, I worked in the childcare field all throughout college. And you're right, it doesn't pay enough. But then it's like on one end, the workers aren't getting paid enough. On the other end, you don't want the childcare to be so expensive for the families that they can't afford to drop their kids off and go to work and do what they need to do. It's, I mean, it's definitely something we got to figure out. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, with your history and skills in workforce advocacy and just my experience in working in different avenues of the world, it's easy to see why we would be passionate about it. But why should why should regular folks in the general public care about skills training at all?
Yeah, it's a great question, Tiana. Skills training is a huge issue for our workers, for businesses, and for our economy. And you see it in our communities and you see it in the research. So, for example, skills training, when it's part of a well-designed program and when it leads to good jobs, can lead to higher wages, to earnings that really allow people and their families to thrive, to flourish. It can also lead to job stability. It can lead to career advancement, and it can lead to better benefits. So, for example, if you look at registered nurses who complete skills training programs and earn certifications, the research shows that they access higher wages. They're able to advance in their careers. They can become nurse practitioners. They might become doctors, and they often have access to benefits like health insurance and retirement plans. I think for businesses, what skills training does is it ensures that they can compete in today's ever-changing economy. So skills training can improve the knowledge and the skills that workers need to fill these in-demand jobs. Research also shows that it can lead to productivity gains, to innovation, to profitability. If you look, for example, at advanced manufacturing technicians, they are being trained through skills training program in areas such as robotics, automation, precision machining, right? These help manufacturers increase their productivity. It helps reduce downtime and improves overall efficiency on the job. And when more workers in high demand fields are able to take these jobs, it boosts economic growth and it reduces unemployment. So we know, for example, that with the growing demand for infrastructure projects and renewable energy is two areas that we saw quite a boost in over the last few years. A larger pool of trained electricians is going to help fill critical labor shortages. It's going to drive economic growth, and it's going to reduce unemployment in those sectors in construction and energy. And research shows that workers who complete skills training programs, they often see a 30 to 40% earnings increase compared to those without credentials. So skills training pays off in multiple ways.
Right. So we're looking for not just any kind of job, but like good quality jobs that offer us great pay, great benefits, maybe a better work-life schedule.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the key point is that job quality matters, and skills training, career pathways, and supportive services are three important pillars of good job quality across industries. It isn't the only thing that matters, right? Certainly, we also need higher compensation. We need workforce protections. We need a financing system that can pay for skills training, for career pathways and supportive services. But those are key pillars. And that's something that every established framework on job quality in the field provides. So, for example, quality jobs will make sure that they offer wages that can pay for the cost of living wherever you live. So, for example, a good job would also ensure that there is tuition assistance and apprenticeship supports, and so many large employers need to offer those in order to make sure that their workers can gain those skills. And of course, industry recognized credentialing systems that we're ensuring that we're creating clear career pathways with stackable credentials in these high demand industries. I think all of that is really important as we think about developing good jobs in this country.
So we've talked about good quality jobs. We've talked about what skills training is and investing in skills training programs in this country. What I want to shine a light on is the advocacy part of all of this. And there's one special place where policymakers, workforce advocates, students and workers, and everyone under that umbrella come to meet. and that is our annual Skills Summit.
So we do have our annual Skills Summit in May. It is the 25th anniversary of National Skills Coalition. This will be the first year that we're combining it with our Skills in the States that we used to do. How could someone join and be a part of this collective effort to ensure that all workers have access to skills training opportunities?
Yeah, it's a great experience. It's something that I would really encourage everyone to come to because it's an opportunity to learn about all of these issues and specifically how states and federal leaders are leading the way in investing in skills training and career pathways and in supportive services like childcare and transportation to make life better for working people and for local businesses. And we have a long history of working across the aisle. We are learning from states all around the country, and we're learning from what's happening in DC to make sure that we're coming up with the best ideas and that we're bringing people together to learn about them. It's also an opportunity to meet other like-minded people. So I attended my first Skills Summit prior to joining National Skills Coalition several years ago, and I was surprised by the incredible warm energy that's in the rooms. This is a space where you will meet somebody from a completely different part of the country who is doing the same thing that you're doing in your state, but they're innovating maybe in a way that's just a bit different and that will give you the idea you need to move what's needed in your community. It's also fun. I mean, it's an opportunity to kind of roll up your sleeves and learn about what's happening at the federal level. And the final day of the summit, people go onto the Hill and they speak to their members of Congress about what they're seeing in their communities and in their states. And they're forming those relationships that are so critical, I think, for how our government works. And so I would highly recommend it for people to join us for a few days and help us advance this movement for skills all around the country.
Yeah, no, the Skills Summit, like you said, it's a fun place to be. I mean, you meet a lot of great people. Everyone is so friendly. You get some good networking in. And a lot of the conversations, even if it's not main stage plenary, our experts that we have come in and participate even in the concurrent sessions. I mean, those are amazing too. I get a lot of good information that I wouldn't have known or even thought to look for just from people being in their different states and in their different areas and all the knowledge that they have. On top of that, the reception is always a good time. I love to just walk around and chat. Yeah, I mean, if you guys can join us, please, by all means, do. It will be a great time. You won't regret it. And Robert, thank you for your expertise. It has been so valuable, and it's been good talking to you about skills training and to see where NSC stands on the side of the aisle on that. So thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tianna. It's a joy to be in this job, and I really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you for opening up about your personal stories, and I'm looking forward to hearing from other experts on this podcast.
Excellent. Thank you, Robert.
Thanks for tuning in to our very first episode. You heard Robert. Join us at the Skills Summit in May to dive into advocacy, connect with your legislators, and discuss what's happening in your state. Got a story to tell? We want to hear it. Drop us a comment, send an email, or reach out on social media. We're listening. Stay tuned for episode 2, Fear of the Unknown, where we'll explain how we're navigating a new administration in 2025 and another special guest. All right. See you next time on The AMP.